Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transitions support sessions today. We're excited to have so many here. We're going to explore some fantastic tips and advice on housing and independent living skills. And we've got some really expert speakers that's going to share some valuable insights and case studies and all sorts of things. So please feel free to ask questions. We've got the Q&A function because there's going to be quite a few of us. If you could please do that, that would be helpful. So let's dive in to the session. Let's just get my thing working properly. Would help. Okay. For some reason, it seems to be disconnected. My name's Debbie Westlake. I'm a project manager within Devon County Council, and I'm supporting the Transitions programme across the directorates. This includes managing and supporting the webinars, and I've also got two sons who are in this period of life, so I'm very passionate about it and understand a lot about it. So the guidelines, we are unable to discuss individual situations here. However, you are more than welcome to contact us separately via the various emails provided on this email. And for general questions, please do use the Q&A section, and we'll address them on our website after the session. And if we have time at the end, we will try and answer some for you as well. So just to recap, after the session, I will send out the presentation to all the attendees' email address, as well as there will be on the website a link to the recorded session and the Q&As as well. So let's welcome our speakers, and we're going to start off with Sophie. So Sophie is a housing and options manager from South Hams District at West Devon Borough Council. Sophie is committed to ensuring that everyone gets the support you need and advice around able to secure a home, which is tricky in this difficult housing climate. We've then got Becky, who's going to talk to us from Rooting Independence Manager in Devon County Council, which is the short-term enabling service. And Becky is enthusiastic and committed to ensuring young people live an independent and fulfilling life. Patrick, or Paddy, is a deputy manager at RFI as well, with over a decade of experience in both the private and public sector, and he is dedicated to empowering individuals of all ages to achieve their goals. We've also got Gemma on the call. Gemma is the service manager for DCC's Care Experience Young People and Young Asylum Seekers. We've got Alison Bagnall, the Sensory Team Manager in Adults, who's going to talk to us about support for visually impaired people, and she has worked with them for over 30 years and manages a team of ROVs or rehabilitation officers who support people with sight and hearing loss across Devon, enabling them to maintain independence. We were going to have Eleanor Ronchetti. Unfortunately, she's not well today, but she is a advanced practice occupational therapist supervising OTs and helping people of all ages overcome the challenges completing everyday life. So today we'll start by exploring all of these topics, and it is going to be quite a complex area, so we've got lots to get through, but it is going to be also very informative. So we're going to talk about finding a place to live, but also about the support available to help you live independently. So get ready to learn about your housing options and tools you need for success and an independent life. So let's dive in. I'm now going to hand over first to Sophie.
Hello, my name's Sophie Kobelik. As Debbie has already explained, I am the Housing Options Manager for South Hams and West Devon, and I work very closely with Devon County Council to ensure that people are aware of their housing options and are supported to access those. So we're going to start off with looking at income and housing options. Each of the housing options we will discuss today will have a cost attached to them. Some of them will be paid for via benefits via private income or any other individual income. Others will be financed through adult social care. Each option that we discuss, it's really important to investigate the costs associated with those options so that you know that the final outcome of your housing journey is going to be sustainable and affordable for you. My next slide. So housing benefit and universal credit. So universal credit is a means tested income that comes from the DWP, Department of Work and Pensions. You will access that through your local job centre. Part of the UC claim of any universal credit or UC claim can include an allowance to support with accommodation costs. So you will hear that referred to as your housing allowance. Some people will still refer to it as housing benefit. Housing benefit is administered slightly separately, but they are essentially your benefit entitlement towards your housing costs in terms of your rent. So the majority of housing options that have a rental element, you will access the cost of those through your universal credit claim if you are eligible for that benefit income. In some circumstances, your housing allowance would need to be claimed by a housing benefit, which is administered by your local district council and is accessed slightly differently. But your job centre advisor will be able to advise you on that and which one you need to aim for. If you are unclear on anything at any point, it's also worth speaking to your district housing benefit advisors because they can clear up any confusions. The amount of housing allowance that you will be entitled to is dependent on where you live in the country, and you can access information on up-to-date levels of housing allowances that are payable through the Valuation Office Agency, and the website link is included on this slide. If I could have my next slide, please. So, other financial help and assistance. In terms of rent payments, you have your housing allowance. There are also, of course, additional costs associated with living independently. So that might be the rent in advance or the deposit that you need to pay up front in order to access a rental property. It might be a support towards the cost of your council tax, and it might be support with essential items such as white goods, improved insulation, and if you get into any sort of a crisis situation, it might be support with accessing things like food banks. I would really strongly suggest, if you have any housing costs that are attached to setting up your home, that you speak to your local district housing advice team about whether they can support you with the rent in advance and deposit. The other options, the best people in the world to speak to are your local citizens advisors. They will always be on top of whatever the latest fund is that's come out and the latest scheme, and some of the local schemes as well. So they're really good people to speak to. But for full details, it's a really good idea to speak to citizen advice and your local housing options team as well. If I could have my next slide, please. So we're going to start off with home ownership. So the traditional model of home ownership, where you put down a deposit and you go to a high street lender and you arrange a mortgage based on your income, that's the standard available option that most people are aware of. The options that fewer people are aware of are the ones that are there to support people who are potentially on a lower income or have a long-term disability. So the most prevalent option in the Southwest certainly is the shared ownership scheme housing, which you will find details on through the share to buy website. This allows you to purchase part of a property, and you would pay rent on the other part, which would be owned by either a council or a housing association. So you would effectively share the ownership of the property and you would own your bit of it. You might have a mortgage on your bit of it, and you would pay rent on the rental element of it that is owned by somebody else. There is additional to this a scheme that I am not terribly familiar with. We don't have a huge amount of experience in accessing this scheme in the Southwest, but the hold scheme, which is home ownership for people with long-term disabilities. And there is quite a lot of information on that on the local.gov.uk website, and the link is included there. As it's a really important thing to remember that if you own your own home, it can affect the benefits you're entitled to claim. But a lot of the time people think that home ownership is not going to be available to them because they can't then claim towards the rental proportion of their property. This isn't necessarily the case. You are still eligible to claim benefits to cover the rental element of a shared ownership property, providing the property is your home. So you're not renting out to anybody else, and you're not renting it from anybody else. Your rent liability is attached to the property that you live in and that you part own. You can claim benefits to cover that rental element of those properties. So that can be a really nice scheme for people, particularly if you've got a smaller income from part-time employment, or if you have a small amount of inheritance, something like that. It's quite a nice way of getting yourself on the housing ladder. I can have my next slide, please. So renting social housing or affordable housing. Social housing and affordable housing are properties that are provided and owned by either councils or housing associations. They are specifically designed to offer low cost housing, so low rental rates. They will also support people with specialist housing needs, where maybe the private sector can't deliver against those housing needs, and they are usually attract some form of government funding along the way, which is why they need to remain in that low rent bracket. That's kind of a condition of the funding that goes with the development. So to access this type of housing, you need to be on the housing register. For Devon, our housing register is called Devon Home Choice, and the website is on this slide. It's a reasonably long form that you fill out, and it will, and then an officer will assess your housing need. So, for example, if you are a single person living in a one-bedroom property who is absolutely fine, has no need to move, you will have a very low housing need. However, if you are at risk of homelessness, or you are needing to leave another property or another type of housing provision for whatever reason, you might be awarded a higher priority. The properties that become available are offered to the people who have the highest housing need, which is why where you are on that scale is important. What I will say is that it's a fantastic option if you can access it, but there is not enough housing for the number of people that need it. And hand on heart, all of the people that I work with in housing wish that there was more of it, because the rents are that bit lower, but it is very difficult to access. So it's just caveating that approach, that it's really important that you don't put all of your eggs in that basket, because it's not a guaranteed solution to a housing need, and it's certainly not a rapid one. If I could have my next slide, please. So renting from a private landlord. Now, in terms of the rental sector, this is the predominant rental option, certainly in the southwest. This is where you live in a property that is owned by either an individual person or sometimes by a private company. The properties are advertised in the sort of the usual commercial places you would expect to see them. That could include Zoopla, Rightmove, the adverts in newspapers, estate agents, those sorts of things. Your local district council can very often help people access the private rented sector. So things like the deposit rent in advance that I referred to earlier, it's really, really important that if you are able to save to put some money towards setting up your first home, that you start early. And if you are not able to meet those costs, that you speak to your local district council to see if they can help you with those. Now, within the private rented sector, you might choose to rent a whole property on your own, in which case you would be responsible for paying all of the rent, all of the bills, and you would have they call it exclusive use, so you don't share with anybody else, exclusive use of that property. Or you might prefer to rent a property where you're sharing with another person or people. Now, this type of property is often referred to as a house of multiple occupation, which is abbreviated or shortened to an HMO. I could have my next slide, please. Now, renting houses of multiple occupancy, or HMOs, is often a really excellent option for a lot of people. I think a lot of people think that what they want is their own property and to not share, but in fact, it can be very lonely living on your own, and it can certainly be very expensive. It's a really brilliant way of getting to live independently whilst also having people around you that are going to share the costs of utilities, that are going to be just there in the morning when you wake up, so you're not completely on your own. And the best bit about it is if you can reduce your outgoings on your property, it means you can continue to have a really active social life, because which is something I think is really important for all of us, because loneliness is a massive issue for people who live on their own. And if your property costs that you're funding all on your own are too high, that can then prevent you from being able to go out and make friends and see friends and do things. So it is a really great option. I recognise that there are people who have concerns about HMOs, and I share those concerns. I think Debbie and I discussed beforehand some of the absolutely dreadful student houses we'd lived in that had been run appallingly badly and been quite frightening. But what I can reassure you all with is that there is a licensing scheme for HMOs. So what Debbie wouldn't have known, and what I certainly didn't know as a student, is that those licensing schemes exist, and that you should check whether or not your property has a license or should have a license. Providing it's got a license, it means you know that somebody from one of our environmental health teams will have gone out and inspected that property, made sure that it is in good condition, that it has all the relevant fire regulations are met, and that the landlord is a fit and proper landlord who is running the property safely and properly. So it's an excellent option, and it also has this extra layer of safety whereby you can explore whether or not they've got the license. I could have my next slide, please. Okay, so housing with support to learn independent living skills. Now, I moved out of my home when I was 18, and the first thing I did was ring my mum and go, I've got a bill for water. You have to pay for water. And this is just one of the things that I learned the hard way, that actually there's quite a lot to living independently that you don't really realise when you're living at home. So if you are somebody who needs just a little bit of extra support to learn to live independently, you don't necessarily need long-term support, but that you could do with somebody just sort of a bit of hand-holding on getting used to cooking, cleaning, managing bills, that sort of thing, then housing with support can be a fantastic option for you. This would normally be accommodation that is shared with other people. There are some independent units within schemes, and a support worker is around to help you with just general standard independent living skills. So nothing particularly a high level, just sort of general independent living. This option is accessed through a variety of panels that are around, or application forms, and there aren't hundreds and hundreds of places. So those positions or vacancies are allocated to the people who need them. So if you don't need any extra support, then that's absolutely fantastic, but it also means you're unlikely to be accepted into a supported living or a supported housing option. The placements, there are privately funded placements available that are available in the commercial sector. There are also sort of the charitable and the housing association ones that might be funded through housing benefit, and might have support workers who are funded through council provisions. So there are a whole variety of those types of housing. I could have my next slide, please. So long-term housing with care and support provision. So there are multiple opportunities for people who need long-term care and support provision to enable them to live independently. This is just sort of a few of the main ones. Shared lives is an option where the individual who with the care and support needs is matched with a family or a person in the community who might, and they may share their home with that person, or they may live independently but very close by. And that person in the community just supports you with your independent living. So they are approved carers, and they share their lives with you. And a lot of those relationships go on to be very close for very many years. Those placements are funded through the council following an assessment by the adult social care team. We also have supported living. So this would be more, the one that possibly people are more familiar with. You may have your own home that is completely independent of any support attached to it, but that you get support brought into your home to help you to live there. So that support might be carers or support workers who are funded by yourselves or by the council, depending on what your needs are. And that care just helps you to maintain your living needs whilst being in your own home. I could have my next slide, please. These are more long-term housing with care and support needs. This is extra, so that we also have extra care housing. I think these are excellent opportunities for people who need to have somebody around them, but actually are capable of living independently in their own home, but just need people to be nearby. So these would normally be clusters of independent properties, and then you will have carers and support workers on site 24 hours a day. So they won't be in your home with you, they will just be within your development somewhere so that they're there when you need them. Those properties can be owned, part owned, or rented. One of the things that I would say is a lot of people, when you raise the option of extra care housing, a lot of people will say that it's age restricted. That's not actually the case. A lot of them have been over the years set up to be sort of over 55s, over 60s. But the more and more these days, we are encouraging people to, we're encouraging developers to create schemes that are not age restricted, they're need restricted, because it's a real gap in provision that we don't have this sort of provision for people who are under 55. So don't be put off. Some of them will have an absolute blanket, no, you have to be of a certain age, but a lot of them, they will be needs based, and the age doesn't come into it, so it still is worth exploring. Residential placements for adults. So these would be similar to extra care housing, I suppose, in that there is 24-hour care and support on site for you at all times. The difference being that you would usually be in a private room in a scheme that's shared with other people, and the accommodation also has provision for your meals, and all of your bills are included in this as well. So again, residential placements can be private funded, or they can be funded by the council following an assessment. So the care provision in these schemes, where somebody is not able to fund them privately, and they need that additional care, they are always allocated according to an assessment of your needs that would be conducted by adult social care. So they're a good place to start if you want more information on that type of housing. I could have my next slide, please. So the major adaptations to your home. We work with a lot of people who in housing who come to us because they have a need for a certain type of housing, or they have a need for wet rooms or level access showers, stair lifts, that sort of thing. It's really important to consider whether or not your property could be made more suitable for you to prevent the need for you to move. So that would include people whose children have additional needs, that they might have the family home adapted to meet those additional needs. There are grants available for some of the works that can be accessed. They would be they're applied for via your local occupational therapist team. So an occupational therapist might assess your property and say, absolutely, no matter what adaptations we do, we just cannot make this property work for you. Or they may come in and say, oh, do you know what? Actually, you don't need to move. We can put in XYZ adaptations and you can stay here. So it's really worth exploring, and it's something that we really try to make sure that people are aware of, because those adaptations can be the difference between you being able to manage really well and cope independently and needing additional support. So it's definitely worth exploring. As I say, you would access that through your occupational therapist, from your local occupational therapy team, and then they may be able to put you forward for grants to fund any adaptations you may be eligible for. If you're in a housing association or you're in council housing, it is worth speaking to your landlord first, because often they will have their own internal schemes that they run. So some of the larger housing associations actually employ their own occupational therapists to go and do assessments on the properties to help their tenants to stay where they are. So it's worth speaking to your landlord as well. I could have my next slide, please. So having covered all of this, I dare say you're now wondering where to find out more about the different bits, and how to contact these local housing teams that I've been referring you to. So where can you go for support and advice? If you're a care leaver, be sure to speak to your PA. There is also a link on this slide that will take you to some resources that are specifically targeted for people who are in care or have recently left care. For general advice relating to your housing options, including things like support with completing forms or accessing services, anything like that, do speak to your local housing advice team. And the local authority contact details for all the different councils across Devon are available if you follow the link in the slide here. But my name is Sophie Cobbledick. I work for Southampton West Devon, and I would be very happy to take any questions that you have, and I will be supporting Debbie with making sure those answers go back out to everybody. I think that's the end of my housing bit.
Excellent. So we're now going to move on to independent living skills. I'm Becky, and alongside Paddy, we're going to tell you a little bit more about the Reaching for Independence service. So Reaching for Independence is Devon County Council's short-term enabling service, and we support those of the age of 17 and above who are eligible under the Care Act to gain independence. So we use a strength-based personal approach to build on the skills that you already have, to kind of develop those skills for you to be as independent as possible. So there's a variety of areas that we can support in. So thinking about the webinar that we're at today, budgeting. So we're able to support with understanding your budget, what bills need to be paid and how those bills are paid. Household management and cooking. So it's the boring grown-up bits, knowing what chores need to be completed and when do the bins need to go out, how often do I change my bed linen, it's all those sorts of things. Education and employment. We can support you to gain skills and explore different work options. Obviously, having paid work helps you in your, in your own home and kind of paying those bills that you have. We're also able to support with health and well-being and social groups. So we're able to work with you to access your local community, to look at what is available in your local community and what might be of interest to you, and how you get to those activities. So that could be, for example, the gym, a football team that you want to join, or a gaming club as an example. We do this by understanding your aspirations, goals, and building on your strengths, as I mentioned before. We understand that life is a journey, and we are able to work with you more than once. It's depending on where you are in that journey. An example of this may be you're living at home with your parents or carers, and you'd like to begin to gain the skills to live in your own home. So one of these might be learning to cook for yourself. So we would work with you to gain these skills, looking at budgeting, and kind of how you purchase your groceries, and then looking at how you cook those meals. And once we've reached that goal, we would leave you capable of kind of being able to cook for yourselves and maintain your nutrition. We then, at a later date, once you found your property, you may feel that further support is required in learning how to budget and to kind of pay your bills, as I mentioned above. So we could come back and work with you again and kind of work with you to understand your budget, how to pay those bills. And it also may be that we need to just touch up on your cooking skills. You're in a new environment, new kitchen, new appliances, so we're able to do that piece of work with you. We're next going to look at employment and how we can support you in that area. So, Reach Independence will support you to explore career options, job opportunities, and skills that you may need to gain paid employment. We will discuss this with you and your interests and what roles you may wish to explore. So part of this as well, just a reminder, is that there has already been a webinar around employment and education. So I'd highly recommend to go and have a watch of that webinar, and it's linked at the bottom of this slide. But Reaching for Independence can support you with training and qualifications. So once we've got a good understanding of your aspirations, goals, and depending on where you are in your employment journey, we may initially begin by exploring the skills that you need to gain paid work. So we have great connections with Learn Devon, and they're able to support with courses that may enable you to up skills. So, for example, maths and English. We're also able to explore kind of more localized resources that might be available to you. Work experience and volunteering. Work experience and volunteering is a great way of getting a flavour for different work environments. And possibly finding the kind of the employment area that you're interested in. It's a great way to begin to develop the practical skills that you'll need, kind of things around like routines for getting ready for work, getting there on time. This is also a great way to build your confidence in a workplace. Employment hubs. So as I've mentioned, there has been a webinar with a lot more detail than this about the all of these. So do go and have a look. But the employment hubs, once you're kind of ready in that journey to begin looking for work, the employment hubs are available to support you with job searching, CV writing, and Reaching for Independence can support you to make connections with this service, and if needed, travel train to these services. Job centres, again, another great resource in Reaching for Independence, can support you to make contact with and to travel train to, and they're also able to support with job searching, work experience and interview preparation. Soft employment skills. So once you've found your role, we can support you to develop the routines, focusing on getting ready for work, kind of if you've got a uniform, getting your uniform ready the night before, the alarms that you need to be getting up to, travel training to work, and thinking about what you need to take to work with you. So be that a packed lunch, a coat, depends on where you're working. And as I said, it's kind of looking at the reminders that you need to make sure that you've got all of those steps covered. So the next slide is around independent living skills. So once you've found your home, Reaching for Independence will work with you to develop skills around managing your own home, such as maintaining your home. So as I spoke about earlier, the boring bits, the housework, the chores. So looking at what tasks need to be completed in your home to keep it clean and tidy. And sort of looking at how often these tasks need to be completed. So it might be that we'll support you to kind of develop reminders and routines around that, and we might look to use smart devices that you've got in the home to kind of help you with those reminders. Food and nutrition. We will work with you to develop a menu plan to look at how you're going to purchase your groceries, be that traveling to the supermarket to buy them or ordering online. We'll then work with you in gaining cooking skills, so you're then able to make your own meals. Budgeting. We'll work with you to understand your budget and what money you have available, and to develop a budget plan, and to enable you to understand the bills that you need to pay and when those bills, how those bills need to be paid. So is that by direct debit? Then on to self-care. looking after yourself is really important when you live away from your parents and carers. And some people sometimes need a reminder to complete tasks to kind of keep themselves well. So that might be a reminder to remember to have a bath or a shower or to brush your teeth twice a day. So again, we'll work with you to support you in developing those reminders and skills if needed. Forward planning. We all have appointments that we need to attend, such as GP appointments. We can support you to develop ways, again, of remembering that those appointments need to be attended. This could be a calendar, it could be a wall chart, or again, we could look at using the smart devices that you might have available to you. We'll always explore tech as an option and when we're working with you. Tech enable care and support, so we could look at devices that you're already using that strength-based approach. Many people have smartphones, are looking at apps for ordering groceries or self-care apps. There's a wide variety of things that are out there that we might use or kind of give you options of exploring. So that's a little bit about independent living skills in the home. I'm about to hand over to Paddy.
Thanks, Becky. I'm going to be talking a bit today about community access and travel training. A massive part of you successfully moving into a new living situation is getting to know the local area. Reaching for Independence's enablers have a vast knowledge of services, community groups, and activities across the county so that every person can find what they're looking for. Our service can initially support you with gaining the confidence to access key places and services in the community. This can include registering and accessing the GP in your locality, finding local shops, and understanding travel routes. Our enablers will meet with you and discuss your likes and interests. Following this, we will support you with identifying appropriate groups and opportunities in your area that you can attend. The enablers will be able to support you with initially attending the activity in order to make introductions and build confidence. The enablers will then gradually withdraw their support, allowing you to organically develop relationships and ultimately attend the social groups independently. Within RFI, we are firm believers in positive risk-taking. This means identifying the potential risks involved and developing plans and actions that reflect the positive potentials and stated priorities of the people we are working with. A fact of life when being in the community is things don't always go according to plan. Our enablers will support you with knowing what to do in an emergency, such as having emergency contacts on your phone, personal safety measures, or what to do if your plans change unexpectedly. As I'm sure we're all aware, young people spend huge amounts of time on their phones. RFI can help you put these skills to good use by supporting you with downloading and using travel apps and looking at apps to support with anxiety or self-regulation and reminders. This will ensure you are safe and well when accessing the community. Once you've been supported into integrating into the wider community, you will feel more valued, develop friendships, and be more likely to maintain your well-being and overall independence. Next slide, please. Travel training. Being able to utilize public transport and travel routes is a key component of an individual becoming independent. As always, your personal safety when in the community is paramount. Our enablers are able to apply a phased approach by initially understanding your base level of skill and tailoring their enabling support to ensure that the person is able to remain safe and comfortable when they are on their own in the community. We always encourage people who use our service to work intensively with us. This is all the more important when completing travel training, as this allows you to get into a routine. This can be encouraged and reinforced by creating alarms and checklists to ensure that you have the correct medication, clothes, or food. We will enable you by going at your pace. This could look like first showing and accompanying you on the route, and then gradually withdrawing support and observing you until you're at a point where you can complete the journey independently and, most importantly, safely. We will go through contingency planning with you to ensure that if something is to go wrong, like a bus or activity being cancelled, you know what steps to take to make sure you remain safe and well in the community. Again, our enablers have an intimate knowledge of apps and other technology like travel apps or self-care apps that will reinforce and bolster the independent skills that we have supported you with gaining. Some of the benefits we've seen firsthand from completing travel training are increased confidence, improved social skills, greater independence, and a foundation for future travel. Next slide, please. Thank you. I will now share with you a wonderful success story from our service about a young person who wanted to live independently and how we supported her to achieve this. Diagnosed with autism and anxiety, the young person initially faced significant challenges in achieving independence. Living at home with their parents, they struggled to leave the house independently. However, with unwavering support and their own incredible perseverance, they have made remarkable strides. They began by creating a CV and applying for jobs with the support of an RFI enabler, eventually securing a volunteer position at a local charity shop. This role not only provided valuable work experience, but also boosted their confidence as they began attending independently. They were supported with completing travel training to their volunteer placement and local supermarket. This newfound independence extended to traveling alone to the local town for shopping, another significant milestone in their journey. Perhaps the most transformative achievement was moving into a new house and transitioning to living independently. They gained confidence in independently budgeting, maintaining their home, and meal prep. Even hosting their parents for a meal, showcasing their growth and self-sufficiency. With RFI support, they have made significant strides in employment, using public transport and living independently. Their journey is a testament to their hard work, resilience, and determination, and the fantastic work that our service can do. Thank you for your time. And hearing a little bit about our service, I will now hand you back to Debbie, who will tell you more about the occupational therapy team and the role they play in independent living. Thank you. Therapy team and in independent living. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. I'm just going to mute everybody. I don't know if you're not muted, if you could just mute yourself, that'd be great. Okay, so occupational therapy. Occupational therapists help people of all ages look at their challenges, their independence, but also their occupations, what they term occupations. They look at a person holistically and look past their disabilities, diagnosis, or limitations. They explore the relationship between the activities, the challenges, but also specifically the environment, and look at opportunities to increase the well-being of that young person or people. So the Transitions Adult Social Care OTs work specifically with individuals to support with equipment, adaptation, signposting, to rehab, reablement, and other services to look to future goals, moving and handling. And obviously, because of the CARE Act, it is all strength-based approach. It is about focusing on people's capabilities and assets and promoting independence, resilience, choice, and well-being. So there was a case or an example that Eleanor was going to discuss, which was around the difficulty with bathing, and exploring equipment and strategies, onward referral, and then possibly a DFG, a disabilities facilities grant after all the other options had been explored. So sometimes, as we know, that it can sometimes take a long process to go through, but it is something that they look to do to promote people's independence. We've also got two really useful links in the slide around the Equipment Advice Devon and the Independent Living Centre. And I believe there's occupational therapists, certainly in the Independent Living Centre, and in the Equipment Advice Devon, there is a assessment tool online that you can do. We can ask a few questions and it will come up with suggestions around the different tech or equipment that could help you with your independent living skills. So those are some useful, and again, all of these links will come out with when I send them this afternoon. All right. I'm going to hand over. Alison.
So supporting young people with sensory needs, that's vision and hearing loss. The sensory team work in a similar way to Reaching for Independence and occupational therapy. We're all about maintaining, regaining and building independence, particularly for people with sight and hearing impairments. We have an adults team and a children's team. I manage the adults team. And we basically are able to work with people who have sight or hearing loss and focus on activities such as getting out and about, crossing roads safely, getting from A to B and back again, which can sometimes be a different route, using white canes and mobility devices to enable people to get around. We also can work with people to build up their daily living skills. So, as Reaching for Independence have mentioned, cooking and using the cooker, doing scary things like using sharp knives and pouring boiling water, those sorts of things, which obviously when you have a sight impairment can be particularly daunting. We can also demonstrate various bits of equipment, particularly if someone has hearing loss. There are various adaptations and pieces of equipment that can be really useful to get round. They have flashing lights or vibrating pads, that sort of thing. We also maintain and hold the register, the sight loss register in Devon. So if somebody does become registered as sight impaired or severely sight impaired, that comes as a referral to us and we get in touch and see what support might be needed. We can also work with people to look at their own homes or the environment that they're in. So we can talk to people about lighting, color contrast, adapting various pieces of equipment, so they might be tactile or audible, and also focusing on some of the IT apps, etc., special sort of access technology, so people can access screens and have them speaking. So much out there these days that's available. It's just knowing where to look and how to use it and keep it updated. Even we struggle to keep up to date with all the technology that comes out, to be honest. So that's the main sort of focus. We can also advise people about Braille and other ways to get in touch using their smartphone with various accessibility options. But that's generally the focus of what we do. People can self-refer. Our transitions team, if someone is approaching 18, our transitions team will send a referral through to us if there's a possibility that somebody would benefit from the kind of rehab work that we do. We cover the whole county, so we have sort of one worker in each area. We also get lots of referrals from hospitals or internal referrals from Devon Council as well. So there is also a children's team. They work from birth to 18 years, again, county-wide. Their focus is particularly on building sort of skills for life and supporting parents, families, carers, etc., other professionals to advise and raise awareness around sight loss. They focus as well on dual sensory needs and deaf blindness. So teaching lots of skills and generally sort of awareness of environment, that kind of thing. And their goal, like ours really, is to promote confidence and independence, helping young people to learn and develop. So it's gaining skills and sort of adapting skills to account for sight loss and hearing loss. They work with people in the home, in the community, and in education settings. The adults team tend to focus more around sort of home and community, but the children's team do focus a lot on schools and in education settings. And they work alongside all those other professionals in health. They do attend the eye hospitals, and there is someone from that team on site to potentially talk to parents in kind of layman's terms about what might be going on with their child, and yeah, supporting in that role. So in education, they will go into schools and see people in schools, voluntary organisations, and obviously social care as well. I think that's everything from me. I think it's, yeah, similar work to lots of other teams, but obviously with a focus on sight and hearing loss.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about a summary of all the useful information. So obviously within the slides, there's lots of useful links, but I'm just going to go through briefly a summary. So we've got all the various different housing options summarized on the website. So you should be able to see all of that there. And again, always room for improvement. So please feedback if there's any other things that you see is not mentioned or needs to be added. There's the link to Devon Home Choice, Independent Living Centre, and the Adult Occupational Therapy team. One thing that we haven't really spoken about at the moment that we're trying to really promote is around the Transitions Guide. It's a piece of work that we've worked across directorates and teams, and it was requested by parents to say, you know, this whole transitions journey is really complicated, and knowing who does what when where is very complex. And so in education, who does what? In health, who does what? And in adult social care, who does what? You know, so it's just we've attempted to do that, and it's continually improving and changing. So please do go to that. Huge amount of information and links, and we've written it in a way that hopefully it's nice and simple and easy, but it starts from 14 right through to 25, and it talks about all the different ages in school and what should happen in your transition journey. So please do have a look at that. We've got a link to the Stand Up Speak Up website for those care experience young people, because there is different and additional support for them, particularly around housing and that sort of thing. So please do look at that website if you are a care experience young person. And then there's just some really helpful tools. So the transitions team has developed an independence toolkit, and there's all sorts of other tools that you can use there. So please do have a look at that. And quite often, just knowing who to contact when is really helpful. So there again is a link to who to contact under various circumstances. So we've got education, health, I think is mentioned there, and all the different, you know, transitions team and that sort of thing. So that's a really useful link as well. So hopefully that will be good for when we send those out to you. Okay. So the Q&A and the chat has been very busy. Lots of questions. And I think I'm going to focus on the Q&A. And I don't know where are we? We've only got a couple of minutes left. So I'm probably going to say we're not necessarily going to go through any questions right now, but we will answer all of these questions on our website, and we will also look at the chat to see if there's any questions there that need to be addressed. But thank you for your many questions, and I think there's some really good ones there that needs to be addressed, so that's good. Lastly, and by no means least, I just want to say that there is a feedback QR code and a forms link, which I please ask you to fill in and to just send back to us your thoughts on how it went. So a huge thank you to our speakers for their expertise and insights, and thank you to everyone for joining us, and we look forward to hearing your views and for hopefully hearing more about other webinars that you want to hear about. All right, have a good day. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.